Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Joy podcast. I'm your host, Ash Owen, and I cannot wait to find moments of joy with you today. Why don't you head over to @everydayjoypod over on Instagram. There you can catch up on all the best moments, some good little posts, and you can stay up to date on everything that is happening. Let's dive into today's words to live by.
God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. That is found in Hebrews 6 verse 10.
Tilly, welcome
Hello.
back to the podcast.
I love it.
It is so good to have you here. Now, I have been terrible on my phone this last week. I'm going to just give you a list of...
too much on your phone?
No, as in like haven't been replying to messages or checking anything. And I did a butt dial to someone at work who they then tried to call me back and I didn't even see because my phone was on silent.
Oh my gosh.
Yourself and one of our other friends have been texting back and forth, and long story short, today, Tilly, you were like, quickly, you have to check the messages. And I had a look. And it turns out that we both wore the exact same dresses to our engagement parties.
Really?
I had no idea.
How cute. When I saw it, I was like, wait a second.
You're like, is this my dress?
I was like, how did she get my dress? From my mom's wardrobe.
So good.
But how stunning is that dress?
It's so beautiful.
I feel like we have very similar minds.
Yes.
And it just like came in that picture.
Correct. There's nothing like a good linen dress. I'm like, it's so versatile.
Maxi, halter with a bow. Oh,
ideal. It was just
stunning.
so funny. I was like, I can't believe it. So good. Oh, well, it's great to have you back on the podcast, Tilly. Today we are looking at Hebrews 6 verse 10. What are your first thoughts about this verse?
Yeah, I think what highlights for me is like just pretty much the opening verse. I mean, even in the Message version, it actually says that God doesn't miss anything. And I love the way that that is framed. Like, it's also true that he is not unjust and he will not forget your work. But he doesn't miss anything. I think also puts it in a way that it's really intimate, that he sees everything and that you can trust that his eyes, like under the eyes of the Lord, like he sees it all, and he knows how hard you are working for him and that it's not in vain. And I think it's just a beautiful encouragement.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I sort of see and hear when I read this. You know, I think that whether you're considering this in like a ministry point of view, even if you're a mum, like living out your calling as a mum, or you know, whatever it is as a student, no matter where you are, if what you're doing is, you know, to lead people to Jesus, or, you know, do what you've been called to do, it's this beautiful picture of realizing, like you said, that God sees you and he sees what you're doing. And I think we live in a day where, and I don't know if it's just because of social media, but I think everyone in some form wants to be seen and loved. Right?
That's so true. Yeah, the stories of Instagram, I think, has created that culture. I think it started with Snapchat and it's morphed.
Yeah. And so it's become this thing where, and I actually don't think the idea of it is bad, in the sense of it's actually biblical to love and cherish and care for people, but that actually comes from servanthood and from loving on other people and caring for each other. And I think what this verse is saying is, you know, we don't actually need to seek out validation. We don't need to seek out praise from other people, although it's good. And I would encourage you, be a great encourager. See the people that are doing things around you, but it's not in vain when you're serving the Lord.
Yeah, and I think it has created that temptation to need instant validation.
Totally.
And it's, I think when we recognize that the Lord is always aware of the thoughts of our hearts and, you know, and the words that we speak and the actions that we carry in love. Like, he is always aware and he's fully present in that. But sometimes, like, his rewards do look different. And the thing is, he is our ultimate reward. So our ultimate reward will be in eternity with him in heaven. And so that's so different to how we constantly need that validation here on earth, because we constantly feel like we need to be recognized and seen. But when we see that our assurance comes from him and that he's our reward, it helps us to keep striving that, okay, I'm not, if it's in a ministry sense, I'm not, you know, serving for my leaders or for my pastors or when we have that misaligned, I think that's when we can grow weary and we feel that we're not being recognized, and we can even grow in bitterness, like dare I say. But I think when we realize that it's actually all for worship under the Lord, that's when we can rest in that, knowing that he sees it all. It's not in vain. Chair ministry, it counts.
Yeah.
Those seats need to come out so people can sit down and hear the preaching.
Totally.
That God's our reward. He's our great rewarder.
Yeah. And I think that's a really big, I think that's what it really tells us about who God is that he wants us to come to him for that validation, for that assurance, for that recognition. And I think when we can learn that, it really does change the way it changes everything. It changes the way you work, the way you serve. There are so many scriptures even that say work as if you were working for the Lord.
Yeah. All that you do, drink and eat, like everything you do it for the glory of the Lord.
Totally. And I'm not saying we're going to be perfect at this. No one's perfect at this. But it's the goal of going, okay, I'm going to do my best to do these things. But ultimately, I think what I love about this verse is exactly what you said before. That's the part of the scripture where it says, God doesn't miss anything. He knows perfectly all the love you have shown. It's just, he sees it.
He does.
Be encouraged today that God sees the hard work that you do. He sees the way you love selfishly. He sees the way you love selflessly. He sees the way you choose your family. He sees the way that you honor him. And be encouraged that even if it's not articulated by someone around you, God sees it. It is right there. And it's just a matter of turning to him and allowing the Lord to be the one that fills up your tank
cup
of affirmation and your cup, rather than waiting for someone else to.
I would say in its wholeness and entirety, it's almost like I've seen this verse encapsulated just in my mum's life. Oh my goodness, I'm going to get... I just felt...
It's okay.
I love my mum. I think if you've listened to my chats with Ash before, I'm a big fan. And I have just seen how diligently she has served God and been so faithful. We've gone through some really tough times, some hard seasons, and she has always put the Lord first and has always worked for his glory and has always been loving others and loving me. She has, I guess, kind of just been like a testimony of this. And I would say that even in a tangible sense, she, over a long stretch of years was able to finish her master's in Christian education. And on her heart, she's always wanted to teach teachers in Christian education. She is a teacher and she wants to teach teachers. Try and say that quickly. And the Lord opened up doors that she wasn't even pushing. She wasn't searching. She graduated. She trusted God, and the way that he orchestrated her work and her careers, and these two job places that are next to each other, that are 5 minutes driving from one another, and the way that he has set all of that up for her, and just I've seen him just answer that prayer in her heart. And it was such an encouragement to me with how kind the Lord is to open that door to her, that she's been able to step into that career path. And it's such, I found so encouraged. I remember just praising God on her behalf, being Lord, just thank you. You were so kind to my mum. Thank you for opening that door up. She's been so faithful and worked so hard, and she's completed and graduated, and now the Lord has just opened, literally she wasn't even looking. It was just all orchestrated. The Lord just opened this door for her. And I think that it is a reminder that God sees when it's for him. It's not work for work's sake. It's work that's worship unto God. When he sees that you have that heart to strive and to serve him, he does reward you. And so sometimes it's here on earth, but we know that it is really in eternity. But sometimes the Lord he's just so kind.
Yeah,
he's so kind.
The coolest thing about that story is the idea of time. Like we said at the beginning of this episode, we feel like we need instant gratification, and I'm guilty of it. I have moments where I'm man, no one said anything. No one's encouraged me this week. And it's not a deliberate thing, but we do as people
always in the back of your mind.
Strive off of validation and encouragement, right? And so I think from what you're saying, allow the time
Yes.
Allow God to work, allow God to move. And whether that looks like blessings and fruit in this life or the next, God has you, and he doesn't, and he sees you. So know that everything that you're doing for the kingdom, everything that you do for your family, everything that you do that honors God, he sees it. And he knows that you are working so hard. God doesn't miss anything. He knows perfectly well all the love you have shown him by helping the needy. I love today's chat with Tilly. It has been so good just to think about, we are all guilty of needing that instant gratification, instant encouragement. But today's verse, I hope it leaves you thinking, how am I going to make sure that I get my validation and encouragement from God? It's not always something that happens overnight. It's a muscle that we need to build. It's something that we need to do and rely on God consistently so we learn that he is enough every single time. I hope that you got so much out of today's episode, and I cannot wait to keep unpacking the Word of God with Tilly even more tomorrow. But until then, I pray you're able to find moments of joy.